Um, I know some of y'all are like, I think it was men was the target audience. Did anybody ever do P90X? I mean, it's okay. Raise your hand. I mean, you may not be P90X, but like infomercial right now, but you may have tried it, right? Chris, you did? Oh yeah. Who else did it? Cody did it. Jason did it. Okay. Insanity. Oh, you went to the other level. Okay. All right. Anybody else do P90X? Everybody knows what I'm talking about. P90X. Okay. Okay. You're in it right now, pretty much. You made friends with Sean, so you got some friends that just live it, right? Brian, you did it. Yeah. Okay. So P90X is how long? Yeah. Yeah. Um, and what's the time period? Is it 90 days, right? Yeah. Is that P90? Okay. Did y'all get through the 90? Yeah. Okay. A couple times. Okay. I was going to say I had a friend that did it. He it's kind of funny. Brian, you're real similar to this friend of mine. We were best friends for years in our small town, and he was I think he was an engineer or something like that. But I mean, he worked out some, not really, but he wasn't overweight, but he was just average, it's whatever. And yeah, no, you're above average right now. Right now, you're above average. And they did a judgment, like a judgment thing, right? So you walk through all these scenes of people, and it's like you show like it's an emotional thing. You go through a thing. It's at the church, and anyways, at the end, they had the church, and it was full of like shears, like curtains, right, and like angels and all this pretty stuff. And then they wanted somebody to be on the cross, right? And this was nothing disrespectful. This was a scene, okay, and and just to really bring in this, bring it home as far as this experience as you walk through. There was thousands of people that came through this thing. There was a hell scene down in the basement. It was really hot, There was all these things, right? But when you got to the sanctuary, there was this really just angelic. Just when you walked in there, it was emotional, right? And it was just, you could just, you chill bumps and all those tears, and and there was a lot of salvation. There was a lot of things that happened through that. My buddy was chosen to be Jesus, right? Well, he did not, and so Jesus did not have a shirt on, right? And he didn't. I worked out back then, but I was, I was not in good shape as I am now, and and he did the P90X, because he thought, man, and he had to be up there for hours, like 3 days in a row, right? But he was, he had to, portray that deal, and but dude got ripped. He wasn't trying to get ripped. He was just trying not to look fat, right? That'd be disrespectful to, to the scene, right? But he trimmed his body up. But he did the P90. Well, he just kept going. Like he did it a couple times too, and he ended up getting like really fit, really really fit. And I share that with you because, a lot of things that we do. Some stuff we don't finish. Some stuff we just keep going, right? We didn't necessarily like it, but we saw the benefits of it, right? So you didn't really like doing a lot of that workout. Necessarily, right? Especially in the beginning. If you're like, I have definitely. I used to do CrossFit. And I got certified to be a trainer, that stuff, and I may have cheated a lot in the beginning. If you got done before me, I would totally. My number just jumped to like, 50. You know what I'm saying? But again, you started with that, and you had like a timeline, that you were committed to, like 90 days, right? And what it is that you have something in mind in the beginning, and there's a result that you expect at the end, right? Or there's an outcome you expect at the end. And there's some hard work to get to that point, but you're willing to do that because you're looking for an outcome. You have done that with work. Took a job, come home, tell the wife, this is amazing. This is it. Like, God brought, that's such a blessing. This job is exactly, everything in the world, right? Because I've created an expectation of what that's going to pay out to. I won't have to travel. I feel like I've lied to my wife, which I didn't. I just got the best salespeople are the best people to sell because they fall for everything. And one time I was like, baby, I'll never have to travel. That's all this stuff. And I was there one week, and the guy was like, hey, we're gonna have to get you to start going to this other city, and it was an hour and 45 minutes from my house, one way. And he was staying every day. He said, you might want to consider moving up there. This was like such a trash place. I don't even like driving to this place. So then, literally within 2 weeks, I have to tell Lindsay, by the way, I'm driving to Meridian, Mississippi. No offense, but I don't care, right? But I'm saying that's so. When you get saved, when you have that transformation in your life, it's like nothing else matters. Like literally nothing else matters. If you remember that time in your life where like you chose to be a warrior for God, right? You confessed, you got saved, you rededicated your life, whatever that looked like for you, a year ago or 40 years ago or whatever it was. Like, at this point, you're like, all right, I'm in. Yeah. Who else is, are y'all in? Are y'all, like you're looking at like this awesome time that like you're going to heaven. Like, you're in the group. Like you're took care of. Not only that, but like you also get to take the badge of forgiveness. So now you're walking with this thing where like, yeah, y'all can think what you want to, but I'm going to heaven. I've given my life to God and I'm saved. Like, so now you're not only walking that. So during that transformation, you've not only like have this like P90X. You look at that guy on the video and you're like, I mean, if I could get close to that, right here, shoot, man, 90 days. I get it 90 days. Truthfully, if you really were probably hardcore and watched your food, you'd probably get there. It's easier said than done, right? Or everybody would do it, right? So when I look at that, I'm like, well, I'm going to heaven. I'm in. Awesome. So I've gotten forgiveness, right? Where I've lied, where I was an alcoholic, where I've whatever my sins are, all this stuff. Like, okay, so that's off the table. Woo! All right. Well, here's the thing. I'm 3 years old when this happened. Not that it mattered, but I didn't think like, well, average man lives, I don't even know what it is now, we'll say 75, right? 80, I don't know. 92, I mean, whatever, right?
Why did you point at us?
I was joking. Well, I thought about the timeline, so I thought, let me extend it up really high. It pointed at anybody. But I never took in mind. I never thought in my mind though, and I don't now. I'm just trying to work through this in my head, and I do it out loud. I guess we talking y'all, but like I never looked at my 90 days is really 50 years. Does that make sense? So I know what the end result can be or is. That's done, right? My commitment, like I'm in, right? Bought the little whatever I needed to prepare for that, right? I'm at home. We're all good. We're great. But when that happened, that transformation, I never thought that. If you listen to Robbie's testimony, he transformed his life, that he fell back. And he came back. You know what I'm saying? If you remember his story, like it wasn't just, he didn't just become this, incredible, that was years ago. There's a process there that happened, right? So it's like now I tell you this because I do think that it's something that men, I think we're spiritually immature because when we have transformation in our life, right? When our marriage starts to get better, or when our job starts to get better, or when our life starts to get better, like we think that that's like, all right, this should be this way all the time. Like it's in that 90-day commitment, like you got to bring it every day, and then they'll increase daily or weekly or something like what the capacity is, because they know what happens is your body normalizes to whatever it is. That's why when you see runners, they'll start out running a couple miles, then they're running 7 miles, then they're running whatever their thing is, right? Because it begins to be not really a challenge. Your body normalizes it, where I can't run half a mile probably, unless I'm getting chased, and and then but some people, my wife's uncle, he's just a good old boy, but he started running years ago. And I'm telling you right now, he doesn't need to warm up or anything. He literally could run a marathon right now. It's crazy. I don't stretch. I'm like, what? Right? Me, I would have to go all buy new gear just to think about running. It's a different mindset, right? I want you to think about you and your life, in your capacity and your thought process. Like, think about starting point, okay? And then think about like that. It's not 90 days for you. Yours is similar to mine, I would think, where it's like 23-ish years when I got saved. Like I really thought like I was on the up. If I wrote down my timeline from that point to this point, 20 years-ish later, holy cow, what the heck? I mean, you had a 7-8 year stint there where I was an alcoholic. What? There's just so many things there, and I didn't think. Well, I'm still young, so I mean, like I can't be naive to think like it's not over till it's over. Until I see my Heavenly Father, and I see the gates, and I see, so I still have a process there. So I guess what I'm saying is that we're coming into Easter, okay? We're close to that. I think I like at this time period to really kind of dial in on my relationship with God. With what does that mean to me? How does my life reflect that? How does my actions, my marriage, my kids, my work, like how does that look? Do I need to rearrange? Do I need to like reset? What time is a good time to do that? Probably around now, honestly. You don't want to do it you don't want to reset when it's too late. It's pointless, right? 7 days that changed eternity, and I put 1 week, 1 man, 1 decision that rewrote your story. You were talking about Jesus, right? So there's 7 different things here I'll just hit. You can come back and process it. I want you to think about too, because we're supposed to be Christ-like, we're supposed to be an image of Him. I want you to think through this, and I want you to think about like, take your journey and go through this same process. Take your last year, 20 years, whatever, and like walk through your years. The biggest challenges I probably had personally was when I was the most distant from God. It doesn't mean, Scott, that I wasn't still involved in church and religion. But if God had a meter and He's the only one that can see that, He would have saw this way down here on empty. He didn't see half full, and He didn't see, hey, that thing is pouring out on the ground, quit. It wasn't overflowing, right? But some of my most challenging times, I was actually probably more down in the lower part of that, right? Everybody else may have saw this. My wife may have saw this because I can, guys, we're good at faking, and we're good at manipulating, we're good at being narcissists, we're good at controlling the narrative. Until at some point, when it says 7 miles to empty, and you're like, man, I really should stop at that gas station. And then when it goes empty, and you're like, it's done. I know I still got 20 miles. I read you got 20 miles. And then the thing dies, and you're like, oh, crap. Right? I don't think I've had that problem. I probably had it at least once, right? But we as men really treat life like that a lot. We really treat our relationship with God a lot like we know the answer. We're good. We got 7 more miles. We can make it until we don't, right? And that's what I want us to look at, because when the biggest challenges I've had was a lot of times when I was empty, because when I faced a challenge, when I faced an obstacle, because it's not over, when I was more 3/4 to full, it didn't appear as big of a challenge, because my faith was so much greater. My relationships was much more intentional and involved. That obstacle just looked like a curb. It didn't look like a mountain, because I went into it with more faith and more like God's with me and right? So as you go through this, we want to reflect on, as Jesus, we want to reflect on who he is to us, who we are to him. In the first one, celebration, it says, check your motives. And Matthew 21:9 is Hosanna. Y'all remember when Jesus was coming into the city, he's like, Hosanna, the son of David. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. You imagine, y'all all seen the pictures where Jesus comes in and there's all these, there's people cheering him on, right? I've seen like hanging out of the buildings. I mean, you've seen all these different pictures. You've seen them just line the streets, right? Cheering, cheering, cheering. I get so excited when Carter, when he's playing baseball, right? And when he does, when he has really good an outing, right? And the stands are cheering, I'm just like, I wonder what that feels like, right? You go to a big stadium, a college or pro, and they're chanting and they're doing that. Like, what does that feel like? I'm like, how do they even perform? How do you concentrate on this area throwing a ball, basically, when this other guy is trying to crush it? And you got a bunch of people, they're just trying to distract you. They're cheering. And then your personal mind, just wherever it's at, right? And you think about Jesus is coming in the city and people, Hosanna, son of the high, oh, praise, oh, it's thousands. Just think, just thousands of people praising. When I've been up on the top, oh, yeah, Ryan, I've had tons of more friends in certain groups. I learned that before I moved here. I had tons of friends, tons of people. When I went down, had a valley, had nobody, had zero crickets. My best friend, our couple's best friend. We did everything together. Cried together. Kids grew up together. Cody played baseball, coached together, all stuff. When stuff on my thing went sideways, ghost. Broke. My wife will say it took her years. She still has a problem with friendships. I'm just saying she got really hurt there because this person was worked in the community. And he was trying to get this other job that's community, and I guess he was worried to be associated with me. It was weird. It was terrible. So when I moved here, broken, still an alcoholic when I moved here, and it was like, who are the guys seeking me? Where do I go? Where do I draw that string? Where do I find guys that aren't religious and just trying to be, where is that? Well, it's because I was never in those relationships before. So how would I know how to attain those if I wasn't that person, how could I attract that? When you look in here, it's some people follow Jesus for what he can do, not who he is. How many relationships do we have that it's more of a beneficial relationship than it is just a raw friendship? What I'm saying? Who do you have if something traumatic happened in your life? How many people do you honestly have that you feel would take the extra step and reach out? Who do you think would be? You'd probably be surprised. Some of you have already been there. And you've had certain people, maybe in this room, that was the person. And you're like, dude, my dad didn't even call me. Or my sister, or my brother, or my boss, my best friend. But this guy didn't. I don't even know him. You see? Who was those? Who was that? Are you that person? But and I say this because you got to think, Jesus is coming in. He's healed all these people, right? He has done miraculous things on this earth in this period of time. Word has spread. They're cheering him. They're praising him. Whatever. He's come down the street, right? But the question is, are you committed, or are we just emotional? Right? So are we hyped up because Robbie has an incredible message, and that's what hooked you, right? Music, some are in music in here. I love good music, but I would be one that you could that music could emotionally, I would feel the emotion of the music. Now, would I be able to tell you anything they said? Probably not. I am terrible at that. My wife can recite every word. She can. Everywhere from Celine Dion to Tupac to Biggie to Swift. Me? Negative. But I can feel the emotion in that. I can feel it. Sometimes when we make some men, and you may have been this way when I first met you, we've done this long enough now, I can tell pretty soon if people are emotionally driven coming in here or if they were spiritually led coming in here. I've joked with some guys and I've said, you got here because your wife, you're hoping it's a Hail Mary so your wife will let you back in the house. And there's a person here, and he knows me and him joked about it. I've talked to him and his wife on the phone a lot, and we talk trash to each other. But I basically was like, yeah, he was there because he was like, hey, I'm going to this. Like, can I still, But and at that time, I said something to him. I said, hey, if you're not really doing this, you may get back in. It's not going to last long. You've already fooled her, and that's where the problem's at. You've not been honest. Because I was that guy. Oh, I found the 20 empty bottles. You know what I'm saying? Like, and the other stuff I've lied. It's not just alcohol. That was just a thing, right? So I'm like, check our motives. So are we celebrating Jesus because of who he is or what he can do for us, right? Are we celebrating him or we praise him because we expect him to do something in our lives? Because that happens when maybe it's just me, but that's happened when I least expected it, not when I controlled it. And say, God, because honestly, I had some confrontation with somebody this last week at work, and I definitely prayed. I ain't gonna lie, it was very selfish of me, but I didn't want to still. I didn't want to have this conversation. Yeah, I guess God's like, no, you need it. You need to toughen up, So, but that would have been a perfect example. That just happened because that was a selfish prayer, really, honestly. And then like the confrontation, like cleaning the temple, right? And this is where, Jesus came in and he flipped tables. There's probably some churches or situations where you've seen stuff that's portrayed God and stuff, and you're like, that's not it. He came in and, it's funny because Jesus, he didn't set up camp in a building. He was always out and about. He was always in the ministry. He was always witnessing. He was doing what he told us to do. Literally. But it's funny when he says, my house will be called a house of prayer. In Matthew 21:13, he says, but you're making it a den of thieves. But if you read that scripture, it said he entered into the temple. So what I mean by that is that that's a great example that God was out. He was active. He wasn't just like, come to me if you want to know Jesus. Like he was going to the people that needed Jesus. He says, my house will be called a house of prayer. You're making a den of thieves. No more. And he says, you cannot carry God's presence while protecting sin. So what needs to be flipped in our life? What needs to be turned around in our life? What do we need to turn over to God? Jesus is showing us this thing as we're leading up to Easter. We're leading up to crucifixion, the resurrection, all that. So that's celebration, confrontation, and truth. Stop hiding behind religion. You are like whitewashed tombs full of bones. He says you're really fake. You're really fake. Ryan, you're really fake. Ryan has been fake. Ryan has worried more about what the exterior of my life looked than the interior of my faith. And he says, stop hiding, man. You're just whitewashed tombs, bro. You're full of bones. Ain't nothing in there. You're dead inside. Religion without transformation is spiritual camouflage, like we talked about a couple weeks ago. Are we managing the image, or are we pursuing the freedom? And then you got betrayal. What are you trading Jesus for? In Matthew 26:15, what are you willing to give me if I hand him over to you? Judas said, hey, what are you gonna give me if I tell you which one Jesus is? What will you do for me? God, what will you do for me if I bring my family to church? God, what would you do for me if I did X? What do I get? Negotiate with God. God, if you do this for me, I'll do this. You know how many times I have cried to God, Harold, and cried to God and said, God, if you would do this right here, I will. Do you think God believed I was going to do whatever I said I was going to do? Seriously. I will never cuss again. I'll never disrespect my wife again. I will never argue with her again. Some of you, I will never look at a woman again in a lustful way. I will never drink another drop for the rest of my life. I will never look at porn again in the rest of my life. I will never lose my temper again, baby, if you'll just let me right back in that bed. Right? God, if you will just, I will just. Do you think sometimes God just goes ahead and does it, knowing we're going to fail? But his love is so great, he allows us to fail again, so we have to come back again? Maybe a little bit more humbler? And saying, God, will you help me not do this? God, will you guide me to not do this? Does that make sense, I guess? Yeah. What are we willing to give up if I hand him over to you? Like, what am I willing to trade? I've traded work. I've traded money. What does that mean? Well, it means when you start making money, you have a big job, or whatever. You're right. You don't need God as much, right? Because you made it. I don't trust any job. That's terrible. That's a terrible outlook. I'm just being honest. Now I have faith, but I got to understand that God's in control anyways, because that's how I got the job anyways. You're right. So it's really when my job feels kind of sketch. Instead of worrying about like how my performance is, I look at my walk with God, and I'm like, that's why I actually am scared right now. I'm gonna lose my job, Chris. It's actually not because of my performance. I've always performed. I'm such a psycho as far as like being number one, like especially in business stuff, work stuff, my capacity. Like I will always be number one. I am number one with that company. I've never been down since I joined that company. I've been there a year and a half. I am 30% up this year, and nobody's up 1%. I am crushing. But you know what's funny? I still have some fears. I swear. We're talking about buying a house. My anxieties went to 100. Because I just got off bankruptcy 2 years ago. I haven't owned a house 11 years. Yeah, if that doesn't, I talked through it with Lindsay, which I was scared too because she's a therapist. And I thought this was going to be 2 hours. And it was already 7 o'clock, and I was like, Ryan, do you really want to do this? Right? Because I knew it wasn't going to just be, here's what's going on, and then she'd be like, all right, baby, I love you. No. You got to make sure you've eaten. You've got to make sure you've used the restroom, because it's disrespectful if you have to pee. Oh, you got to make sure it wasn't nothing you was wanting to watch that night, like a big game, and you just killed that one. Oh, you got to make sure that like it wasn't the night to, you got to figure all that out. But I said, you know what, I need to put this out there because it is a thing. It is a thing with me, and I need to be open with this conversation. But somebody else may look at that and go, well, you need to have more faith in God. Yeah, I'm trying. It's not, I don't lack faith, God. Right? But it's something that was very traumatic in my life, and my growth shows that I was able to share it with my wife, honestly. Because when things were really bad and I'm like power and like stuff's getting turned off all the time, I lied every time. Eventually, Lindsay realized that they were not working on the power every other month. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I don't see anybody working on the power line. You know what I'm saying? So many nights I'd go to bed and I'd hear like a beeping sound, Kevin, and I was like, I swear to God, I'm gonna wake up tomorrow morning and my vehicle's not gonna be in that driveway. Like they're getting it. When they said we give you a week's a week, and I was like, was that business days? How are we looking at that? I was in the mattress business for a while, and I did if you had a damaged mattress, like if it came in on shipping, like a company, and it had like a rubbed corner or something, right? Then they can get a credit for that, right? So you give them full credit, and they'll send them a new mattress. They say, well, just dispose of that mattress. Okay? At that time, I had stores and I did outside repping because I'm just trying to pay bills. I'm telling you, I had like 5 different jobs. It was stupid, and I still didn't make any money. So, good job, Ryan. So, I was selling expensive mattresses, Steve. So I figured out it was probably sketch that I did this, but we all sin, right? Fall short of the will of God. And so this company, I said, what are you doing with these? I mean, these were $4,000 mattresses. He says, Man, I just throw them away. I was like, it's dirty on the corner, bro. So then I decided, I was like, hey, they said, I drove a truck because my son drives now. I said, hey, I tell you what, I hate for y'all having to do that. That's just extra work for y'all. I'll just take them, right? And I'll get rid of them. So when I come through, if you've got any, well, I issued the credits. I knew exactly how many, what they had and what they had. Oh, yeah. And made sure I didn't have any of them on Facebook. Bro, they were on Facebook Marketplace. No more than I got out of there. By the time I got back home, I was taking them to somebody's house, right? I was selling them. And I would tell them, hey, it's got a little dirt on it, but it's perfectly, whatever, right? But all these many things, I tell you this because, but Lindsay actually never knew I did that. She never knew that because I wasn't transparent to her on what the situation really was. But see, the problem is the lifestyle didn't change. The going out to eat didn't change. All that. She just thought that I wanted everybody to drink water because it was healthy. No, bro, that's why are we paying $3 for that cup right here, man? For tea? Come on now. Drink water. Love Jesus. He made it. Right? But you think about that, what are we willing to give up if I hand him over to you, right? And then surrender, it's not my will. So in Luke 22:42, it says, not my will, but yours be done. Transformation begins where control ends. Where do you need to surrender? What do we need to surrender? The greatest thing about you guys that I love is the fact that you're okay with not being okay. It doesn't mean we're all screwed up. It just means we're honest. Because if anybody says if they're always good, they're liars. I'm sorry. I've been there. God tells us we can't always be good. We should always have something we bring to the altar. It could be something super small, it could be something big. And if you can't really think of anything in your personal life, then you need to extend yourself out of yourself and look into others and then pray for that. Look into that. And then sacrifice. Do we die to live? It is finished. When he was on the cross, it is finished. It is finished. He had to die. He had to be the sacrifice so we could live for eternity. That was the ultimate sacrifice. You know that. I know that. Before resurrection, there must be death. Before I could be the person I had to give death to something in my life. I had to give death to the old Ryan so I could be a new Christian, a new creation, a new spirit with him. I had to be a new life to get rid of my old life. We had to die to that. We had to literally die. When you die, you bury it. You put it away. Let's let it stand there. Don't resurrect that thing. I don't even want y'all to even know about it. I don't want you to talk about it. No, that wasn't me. That was Orion. His name was something else. It wasn't me. Right? Walk like a resurrected man. He is not here, for he is risen. In Matthew 28:6, Jesus rose to live through you. Are you living resurrected, or are you surviving? I don't know. What does that look like? Walk like a resurrected man. If you look at this from celebration to victory, it's funny because both are super hyped up positive. If I celebrate, right, we celebrate you. If we celebrate Michael, if we celebrate Stanley, that's, right? Hosanna, yeah. Or great, The funny is the victory's awesome, right? Now you've won the game. You pitched a great inning, but then you won the game too, so we're celebrating you again. Yeah, right? A lot of times, guys, I look at this, I look at my life. That's how I perceived life at one point. I didn't look at the 2 through 6. I didn't look at the years in between the starting point and then this other point. I just thought it would stay in celebration mode. I just thought it was celebrating in victories. Win, win, win. That's all we do, right? I almost did that rap song. I didn't mean to. Which is not a bad little hype song, right? But I guess that's what I'm telling you guys is that we celebrate because we know we have God. We have victory at the end because we know what that result is. It's the journey in between. And our Father, which art in heaven, how be thy name? His Son went through some stuff, right? Even he did, as an example to us. He was betrayed. You've been betrayed, I'm sure, right? He did get people turn his back on him that once celebrated down the streets. Where are them players at now? Where's his bros at now? Right? Where's his group? Where's his posse? They weren't there at the cross because they could have pulled the cross off pulled it out of the ground and took him out of there. They weren't there. Where does that look like? That's why, honestly, Fight Club, that's why it's been super important for me. I can find people to celebrate with, bro. Everybody likes a winner. I can find people to cheer me on at the victory, right? What you can't find is the people for the journey to get there. And that's life. And that's okay. Because as we have people, as y'all have people, as y'all engage with more people, you're adding those kind of people in your lives. That's huge. It's huge. He literally showed us an example, guys. We don't look at it that way. But look at it for me, please, this week. Think about it. It wasn't just roses for him. There's people they wanted to take him out. But they didn't know that was supposed to happen anyways. Right? As you share this, go through your table, talk through it. I don't know, maybe it spoke to you, one of those spoke to you, all of those spoke to you. I don't know. But you go from here to here in our minds, but Jesus went all the way through there. All the way through all 7 of those. And we do too. And that's where that growth is. Victory's at the end. We just got a little journey to get there. So if you will, pray through that, go through that, and I thank y'all so much. And that's it.